I'd like to discuss the notion of defining journalists versus defining journalism. This is something that my group considered doing a presentation about, and then our idea changed to something different. And instead, we'll be presenting about the usefulness of getting information from the internet and how we can get it so quickly. But going back to the idea of journalists versus journalism, that's something that really struck home to me just because I define myself as a journalist. But I think what the author of Mediactive is saying is that we should instead be looking into what journalism really includes. And that's things like finding information, getting all the facts right, doing research, finding the right documents, really getting the complete story. People that call themselves journalists sometimes don't do their job well. They get facts wrong, they misspell things, and they have the wrong context of information, and that gives the whole industry a bad reputation. And that's why other people are climbing to the surface and defining themselves as citizen journalists. And that's something valid, and that's something that the industry needs to um, look into incorporating into their model so that we can reevaluate how our system works. The author of Media Active also discusses the notion of shield laws for journalists and how it's disappointing that that doesn't extend to citizen journalism, because shield laws are defined as protecting someone who works for a traditional publication. And I would agree that shield laws should protect the act of journalism and not just those labeled as journalists. Um, so if bloggers put out information, for example, that's questionable um, and needs to be protected by a shield law, they should have that right to do that. Some other topics that were discussed in this chapter, of chapter 4, were things like advocacy groups that are very close to being journalists because they have so much good information, but they have an angle to their information, so that's why they're kind of on the fringe. And even though they're more informed and more of an expert source than a typical journalist might be, they need to take their bias out of their information, and then they might become more credible among the journalism community and among people that are seeking out information from journalists and bloggers. Maybe advocacy groups could be among those. Um, the fourth topic was just being engaged in media. This is what our group discussed last week or on Tuesday, and it just is the notion that if you want to be literate about anything, you have to be engaged as well. So, for example, um, if we only read books but don't do our own writing exercises, then we just won't be engaged in the idea of reading and disseminating knowledge. And in the same way, we should become familiar with publishing information so that we understand kind of where other publishers are coming from and understand how to interact with the media.